I didn't think you had it in you.
I'm your huckleberry.
Why, Johnny Ringo. You look like somebody just walked over your grave.
Fight's not with you, Holiday.
I beg to differ, sir. We started a game we never got to finish. Play for blood, remember?
I was just fooling about.
I wasn't. And this time, legal.
All right, Lunger. Let's do it. Say when.
This is Dueling Pistols, where history draws first and legends never die. No fluff, no filters, just raw stories of grit, blood, and legacy. Triggered by Black Flag.
Why'd they eat the dude's heart?
The Indians?
Yeah.
Take his power? I don't know.
Again, if you didn't know any better, if you didn't have science behind you, it makes sense. I'm just saying.
Hey, come on, dude.
It makes sense.
Why did Jeremiah Johnson eat crow liver?
Because he was dying. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping for. He needed sustenance. Because Brian knows he's that crow up there. Good eating. No one's ever once thought that. If you have a crow on your plate, you've made poor life decisions or life's gotten really rough on you.
Crow Indian.
Oh.
Crow Indian liver.
Oh.
Like the human livers.
Well, if I had to eat a person, Brian, I would imagine the liver's probably the safest thing to eat on that.
Okay, look, all I'm saying is I think it was vengeful. That's why I did it. It was to prove a point, perhaps to take their power. The liver was a sort of a sacred part of the man, and he's like going to desecrate it in a way. So yeah, and I don't know, scares the hell out of people, and there's some nutrients. It's a superfood.
Yeah, I think all of those things are true.
He's half animal.
And if he just happens to gain power...
I've never seen a dog that didn't like liver, so...
That's true.
They just freaking are rabid for it. Look, I like liver. Always have.
Nope.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Brian Call. I'm joined by my brother, Brent Call. How are you, Brent?
I'm well, thank you.
Right on. We are getting back to the book, Boone, a biography by Robert Morgan. Last episode, we kind of went over a little context. American Indian versus American settler. The time frame of and sort of how these in the 1700s and how these cultures kind of intermingled and settled up with one another. There was a lot more cooperation than you would think. Remember how we learned also that rats are imported, invasive species?
Brian, that made me so mad. Could you imagine a ratless world?
We learned that a buck, the word, $10 came from buckskin, which was roughly, one buckskin was roughly equal to the Spanish dollar at the time.
Was it 6 out of 7 Indians died?
6 out of 7 Indians died from 1660 to 1709, estimated by an American colonist who was there. 6 out of 7. That's 86% of the Indian population. You could say 8.5, right? That means 1.5 survived. Dude, that's scary. I mean, it's almost 90% of the native population died as a result of diseases that came with the Europeans. We talked about their cultural differences, the way that European settlers wanted to own things, wanted to build wealth, store foods, raise cattle, livestock, that kind of thing.
That was weird for the Indians.
The native people didn't understand it. They were like, that's like owning the air and the sun.
Well, could you just imagine, like, your whole life you just see wild animals and then you see someone pinning them up for the first time? You think that person's crazy.
Yeah, there's a cultural disconnect.
A lot of talking past each other.
But like the book said, during the 1700s, which is Daniel Boone's lifetime, 1724, I believe he was born. He died 1809, I think, or 18, somewhere in there. Boone was 86 years old when he died, so there's a long lifespan there. He ends up living through a lot of that cooperative period between Native people. And this is why this story is so fascinating, by the way, because you hear Boone, you're going to learn about Boone and the native people more and more as we go on through the book. All right, so let me get back to the book. Brent, I'm going to read a little bit from this because I still feel like the context is important. This is the period of 1751 to 1755, right in this period. And the Boone family moves to the Yadkin in Ohio, I think, or something like that, from Pennsylvania. So they move farther west, right? Which is the theme of Daniel Boone his whole life.
Got to get that elbow room.
So it says here, there has been much speculation about why Squire and Sarah Boone, Squire is his mom, his dad, and his mother, Sarah Boone, and their family left the peaceful countryside of Oley, Pennsylvania for the wilder Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. So they moved to Virginia first. And then the even wilder Yadkin Valley of North Carolina. So Yadkin Valley is North Carolina, not Ohio. So they left Pennsylvania. Commentators have described the Boones as a restless family as fiddle-footed with the itching foot. Certainly it was an age of restlessness when those who had made the great migration from their ancient roots in Britain or the continent felt little hesitation picking up and moving it. So they just moved from England or from Britain or Germany or wherever they immigrated from to the Americas. And it's like, well, if they move that far, they might as well move a little further. Like they don't have a problem. They don't have a lot of roots. The horizon called and curiosity prodded them to go on and then go on again. They just keep looking for that better and better place. It says most biographers and students of Daniel Boone have pointed out that Squire grew less and less in harmony with the community of friends at the Exeter meeting. Now, who are the community of friends?
Those are the guys that became the Quakers.
Mm-hmm. They're Quakers, basically. As early as 1742, when Daniel was only 8 years old, and Sarah, the oldest of his siblings, married a neighbor named John Wilcoxon, who was not a Quaker, both parents were rebuked and they confessed their fault. Ironically, the 1730s and 40s were a time of religious revival in the American colonies when the movement called the Great Awakening was sweeping over the land. Preachers such as Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield conducted services in New England where worshipers swooned, had fits, or cringed in terror or hellfire. Very religious time. But it was also a time when parents and churches seemed to be losing control over their young. More and more young women and children had children out of wedlock, Brent.
Gasp.
There is a tradition in American humor and folklore that religious revivals also inspire a surge in illegitimate births, as religious fervor seems to stir sexual fever. I'm telling you, man, you got to watch out for them religious girls.
A little pent up.
It says, such revivals, it was said, quote, led to more souls being made than saved. After the Great Revival at Cane Ridge in Kentucky in 1801, it was reported, quote, Becca Bell is with child to one Brown. Kate Cummins also got careless and had a bastard. Patty McGuire has been whoring.
Patty straight up. Okay. Patty got thrown to the bus hard. The other ones, they slipped up. Patty, you whore.
The Reverend Charles Wood Mason, who traveled into the Carolina backcountry at this time, noted that 94% of the brides whom he married in the past year were pregnant on their wedding day. Hey, look, these are some strong, robust frontier people. Not a lot to do. They're observing the Indians who aren't exactly the most chaste.
Or clothed.
And that's another thing you learn is they were practical. They weren't going to wear those clothes that they had brought from the old world. You had to work. You had to be outside. It was hot. You walked around half
This
naked.
isn't nasty, shady, overcast England.
No.
Where you have to drink tea to keep your internal body temperature at a decent
Yeah,
temperature.
it said,
It's ridiculous.
but also they didn't have birth control either. So, you keep messing around, you're going to get caught. In 1747, the year Daniel was given his first rifle, his older brother Israel also married outside the Quaker community. Remember, this is 1947. They confessed, what was it? In 1742, they were all mad because their daughter didn't marry someone from the church. Well, fast forward 5 or 6 years later, and Daniel, his older brother Israel did the same thing, and he married outside the church. right? And again, a committee was appointed to speak with Squire Boone about his son's disorderly marriage. But this time, Daniel's father, Squire, refused to submit to public humiliation and confess a fault. The investigating committee reported that he could not see that he had transgressed, and therefore was not willing to condemn it.
Oh, a committee. Oh, man. I don't know there's much I hate more in this world than a committee.
It says, it is possible that the spirit of independence in the new land had made him more resistant to the strictures of the Friends community. Perhaps he had begun to drift away from the faith itself. More likely, though, Squire had learned, as many parents do, then and now, how hard it is to direct the affections of their offspring. They're gonna whore who they're gonna marry.
Oh, man. There's some girls mom wished I would have married or dated. And, man, I'd rather step on a nail. Oof.
And because he also liked the mates chosen by his children, Squire may have felt the unfairness of the Friends' rebuke.
See, it's one thing. What if your kid brings home a stud? You're just like, dang.
His father, George III, had endured the humiliation of public confession. The minutes of the meeting for 1747 show that Squire not only refused to confess his fault, but flung arguments back at the Friends, giving room to a reflecting spirit even against his friends. He later sent a heated letter to the committee, and in March of 1748, he was expelled from the Exeter meeting until he would confess his faults and show, quote, his coming to godly sorrow in himself. While Sarah and the children continued to attend the meeting, Squire, after that, kept the Sabbath by staying at home. So Daniel's father has a strong sense of right and wrong. He's like, dude, I didn't do this. My kid did it.
So I'm reading online that in order in the Quaker community for the kids to get married, they have to get consent from both sides of the parents.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't have got married if he didn't say okay.
Well, that's assuming that they are abiding by the precepts of the faith, which doesn't sound like they are anyway.
But it sounds to me like maybe that he did give them like some permission to go ahead because he is in trouble for them marrying outside.
Perhaps you're right. I see what you're saying. So,
yeah, it sounds like he gave his kids.
I don't know.
Thumbs up,
It sounds like maybe he did. It's hard to say. Regardless, it sounds like you're in trouble if your kid didn't do what they were supposed to. You own that. And I think he's just kind of like, you know what? I don't think God's really that upset about it. At the end of the day, I just,
Bigger problems.
I'm over it.
Yeah.
But we don't really know. We just know what we know. And after that, he stopped going to church. He's like, yeah, I'm not submitting to this. There is a reason to believe, based on symbols carved on his tombstone in North Carolina, that Squire, like his son Daniel later, had been initiated into the Society of Freemasons. Leaders such as Benjamin Franklin were known to be enthusiastic Masons. Formed in England early in the 18th century, the secret society was devoted to fellowship, ceremony, charity, and service to the community. Joining the Freemasons could have made Squire feel even more independent of the Quaker meeting. So, George Washington, wasn't he a Freemason as well?
He was.
Like
Most of the founding fathers.
a lot of the great men that founded the nation and brought about the ensuing freedom and the prosperity that we all enjoy today were in that brotherhood. And it's funny because there's a lot of theories, conspiracy theories, other theories, accusations about Freemasonry. You have the group that says it's a cult and it's dark and evil, and then you have the other group who says it's a fellowship, a brotherhood. You have some probably in between. But I kind of go by, by the fruits of their labor, ye shall know them. In that sense, the fraternity seemed to foster and bring about some great men with great ideas who forwarded some great things. But it's also clouded in its own sort of mystery and brotherhood and secrecy. It's a secret community, and any kind of secret community gives everybody like, whoa, hang on. A lot of secret communities are a little on the freaky side. So
you always cracked me up as the Flintstones, and they had their own little Freemasonry thing, and the guy had the Grand Poobah.
Yeah. Wasn't that kind of more like on the Elks Club sort of?
Yeah, more like or like a Lions Club kind of thing.
The manly fraternity among men.
You know who else were Freemasons? Henry Seymour and William Heston.
Which are who?
Oh, Brian, you know them. The guys who made Quaker Oats.
Were they?
Yeah, they were both Freemasons. Do you know why? Do you know why they named it Quaker Oats? Because neither of them were actually Quakers.
No. Mm-mm.
Brian, is just because it was a symbol of good quality and honest value.
Nice. So they were named Quaker Oats just because
The Quakers were
they
dope.
figured if they use that, they immediately have some cachet.
They basically were like, the Quakers got this like
Image.
image. They've got this reputation of being
Yeah.
solid, badass, blah, blah. So we're going to steal it.
Well, the revisionist historians, I think they'll say that the Quakers are white supremacists.
They might. Yeah, they might, Brian.
In their bastardization of history and reality. Let's go into the book again. Freemasonry offered a fresh way of looking at society and mankind, liberal, rational, committed to a useful, moral life, not based on revelation, class, monarchy. Jews and even African Americans and Native Americans might be initiated into the lodges, into the fraternity. Freemasonry offered a fresh way of looking at society and mankind, liberal, rational, committed to a useful, moral life, not based on revelation, class, monarchy. Jews and even African Americans and Native Americans might be initiated into lodges. In other words, the brotherhood was based on your character, not the color of your skin. It was based on being part of the brotherhood, not based on how rich you were. It transcended class. It transcended royalty. It transcended religion in that sense, as it's not based on revelation. It was committed to. It was a brotherhood committed to a moral life and a rational, liberal look at society. That's progressive. That's different. That's not what was there.
That's
before.
progressive kind of now, let alone
True.
200 years
True.
ago.
Yeah. It seems likely the Boone's affiliation with Masonry strengthened their sense of belonging to the fraternity of all men, whether white or Indian. I mean, that's sort of the precepts of the brotherhood, is that all men are brothers, you know? So it's interesting. You're going to have people who have all kinds of other, there's lots of things written that where you see two opposite stories of what it is. You have those who disparage it, hate it, call it an evil cult, and you have those who say something else. And, but I tend to feel like a lot of history is a lot more nuanced than the black and white boxes we try to put things in, you know. It's food for thought. I'm not an expert on Masonry at all. My thought generally, though, is that it has some pagan symbols and it has some religious symbols, and it's kind of a whole thing of brotherhood, kind of like a fraternity, initiations, things like that. But at the root of it, I think that the outcome of the individuals like Benjamin Franklin and George Washington and others who were part of the fraternity, it seems to me, if you were to judge whether it was a good or bad, a force for good or evil, you would have to look at the men who sprung from it and what they stood for and what they ended up doing. And from that, I can only surmise that it was a net positive kind of thing, but I don't really know. I haven't delved into the depths of it, but it does blow one's mind to learn about how impactful Freemasonry was throughout those 1700s, 1800s. It was a major thing going on in the midst of, I guess, the arrival of America.
It's crazy how little you know about something that like so many famous people have been a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It says that Masonry strengthened their sense of belonging to the fraternity of all men, whether white or Indian, and American or British, and helps explain Daniel's conduct later in the complex, dangerous time of the American Revolution. Again, where he judges men by their character and not by, their class, he looks at Indians as equals, like they're brothers, like they're his kin, you have white people who just hate Indians and vice versa, Indians who hate white people. And that's not the worldview that Daniel Boone lived by. More like Martin Luther King, in a way. It is likely that his father's resistance and excommunication from the Quaker meeting made a deep impression on Daniel. Years later, he supposedly told his young friend Peter Houston that he had never known anything good to come from religious disputes. All his life, Boone avoided religious organizations and sectarian arguments, though he showed a reverent spirit, treated others with respect and kindness, demonstrated an inner calm, and developed the habit of daily Bible reading. He never belonged to any church, nor ever confessed to any established creed. Like many gifted children, Daniel seems to have inherited the best of both his parents. From his father, he appears to have received a boldness and independence, great physical strength and courage, tenacity and leadership, and skill with working with metal. Daniel was driven by the same restlessness and curiosity that Squire had demonstrated. Both father and son had a way with tools and an ability to lead others. From his mother, Daniel may have taken his noted calm and peacefulness, his resistance to panic and anger, his affection for family, forest and countryside, his goodwill and optimism, a trust in others that was sometimes misplaced, and a love of music. This whole part about his resistance to panic and anger, they talk about how uncanny, captured by Indians, certain for death, it's over. Just he didn't get angry and he was calm and peaceful. If it's my time, it's my time. It's like he just was able to maintain a degree of chill and acceptance of life that most can never do. You know, most people have too much anxiety, too much inner turmoil, I think, to be at peace with a sudden death at any time. But when you live the way that he does, you can only do it generally if you're okay with today being your last day.
Some people just have an extra level of chill in them.
For sure.
You know, I know some people like our cousin Ben.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've never seen him angry, not really angry. I've never seen him feathers truly that ruffled. But I've never been hunting with him, which is a different experience.
No, you're right. Ben is like that. We've had a few fist fights when we were young, like boys do.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I would agree. He's a chill guy. Ben doesn't spend too much time, bemoaning the past, or he's not a complainer. He's a doer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's refreshingly.
I just enjoy my time around those people.
Yeah. Beside his disaffection with the Exeter Friends, Squire would have had other reasons to think of leaving Pennsylvania. His sister Sarah Stover and her husband Jacob had moved to the South Fork of the Shenandoah River in Virginia and sent back letters praising the land and climate of that region. It goes on to say that religious freedom and political freedom were also important, as was escape from debt and indenture. Servants who had finished their terms of indenture in the eastern seaboard usually headed west and south to the cheaper land of the frontier, get land out there. Those who had served in prison for a debt or other causes sought a new start. So they'd leave, they go someplace.
I was going to say, do they have debtors' prisons and stuff then back then as well?
Yeah. So lots of reasons to leave. So 52, they leave, like we said, from Pennsylvania, and they move to Virginia, and later they're going to move to the Shenandoah Valley. No, they go to the Yadkin in North Carolina. I'm not familiar with the East Coast. I know it's going to shock you, but people in the East listening to this, grew up in these regions. You're probably familiar with it. For me, they're little dots on a map. You know, when you start talking about places in Wyoming and Colorado and Bose, Montana, like all those landmarks, I have visions in my head of what they are. You know what I mean? But when I think East Coast, they're all kind of the same. Pennsylvania? Yeah, it's the same thing as...
it's just crowded. In my mind, it's just all kind of mush.
It's the same thing as Carolina, whatever. Which one? Virginia? There's a West and whatever. It's all the same to me. It all lumps together.
The Virginias.
Yeah. So anyway, it says, at this time, Daniel was 16 years old, and the stop in Virginia gave him the opportunity for his first long hunt. So at 16...
Hold on. BS. Didn't he peace out for 2 weeks to go hunt that bear? And they had all come out
3 days
and find him?
or something
it
like
was
that.
just... Brian, for a lot of people, that's a long hunt.
Well, he's 16. We're talking, this is going to be a different kind of long hunt. Listen to this. Inspired by Indian patterns and habits, an extended foray into the wilderness in quest of fur and game and adventure was his plan. At some point after the corn was laid, Daniel and his friend Henry Miller set out on an expedition that took them hundreds of miles into the wilderness. They first explored the mountains near the Shenandoah, all the way to the Great Lick, later Roanoke, then dropped through south through Roanoke Gap and the chain of the Blue Ridge into the Piedmont backcountry of North Carolina, where the game and furs were still more plentiful. On this trip, Daniel first saw the Yadkin Valley, with its wide, rich bottomlands and forests of sycamores, poplars, oak, and hickory. Between its wooded banks, hung with wild grape and pea vines, the river curved out of the hills, puckered and scarred by rocks and sunken logs. The pools were filled with catfish, bass, and bream in the lower, slower stretches, and flashed with trout in the upper tributaries. Mink and muskrat, otter and marten had worn slides in the banks. It's a veritable freaking Garden of Eden. Mm-hmm. William Byrd had explored the region 20-some years before and described it in a history of the dividing line in 1728. The soil is exceedingly rich on both sides of the Yadkin, abounding in rank grass and prodigiously large trees, and for plenty of fish, fowl, and venison is inferior to no part of the northern continent. There, the traders commonly lie still for some days to recruit the horse's flesh, as well as to recover their own spirits. That's such a wordy way of saying they just hung out and fished and stayed there for a few days. 20 years before Byrd, John Lawson, the Surveyor General of North Carolina, had visited the Yadkin Valley, called then the Sapona or Sacona, and described the beauties of the region. They talk about what was there: deer, elk, and bears, panthers, wolves, wildcats hid in the tall, shimmering reeds. The buffalo were mostly gone, though, but a few could still be spotted from time to time.
The buffaloes are gone already?
In this region.
Okay.
Yeah, in Shenandoah area. So, west of Pennsylvania. West, north, whatever. Carolinas.
Somewhere in that eastern mass.
I mean, you're talking all the way on the eastern shore. You had buffalo, right? And, but yeah, at this time, they're mostly gone with a few sprinkling here and there.
Crazy.
When they go to Kentucky, it's covered in buffalo, and then it's not anymore. And you just keep moving west, and you just keep buffalo were across the whole United States. There was evidence of hunting parties of Catawbas, but there were no villages in sight. Daniel and Henry shot all the game they wanted and collected as many hides and furs as they could carry. How many can you carry? You know what I mean?
Me, 0.
Pound for pound, beaver skins and mink and otter were worth the most. A pack horse could carry at least 200 pounds. Yeah.
Checks out.
It was on this first long hunt into the southern wilderness that Daniel saw where his destiny lay. He was at that age when a young man begins to know the shape and direction of his inclination and future, begins to see who he is. If he had doubts before about his calling, the hills and streams of the colony of Carolina, named in 1629 for King Charles I, probably reassured him. When Daniel and Henry returned to Virginia in late fall, they didn't stay for long with the family at Linville Creek, but continued back all the way they had come from the previous spring to Philadelphia to sell their furs and deer hides. So they just cruised on through back to the city. Years later, a grandson of Henry Miller said that his grandfather and Boone, after a year of hunting and trapping, that's the long hunting trip, Brent, a year, carried their furs to Philadelphia and sold them for $1,300, and then went on a general jamboree or frolic until the profits of their hunt were spent. Afterward, Miller was disgusted.
Hold on, till they spent the money.
I mean, it's what it says.
Wow.
Afterward, Miller was disgusted with himself and vowed to never again waste the earnings of his effort.
Yeah, you blew a year on a tear, bro.
When you're 16 and then later 17 and you make $1,300 in 1751, 3, 2.
I get it. That kind of money there, it's insanity.
I mean, that's he told his descendants that, quote, Boone was very profligate, happy to blow whatever he made. It appears that from the beginning, Boone had little interest in accumulating wealth.
Bro, some people money just falls on them, I swear, and they just don't care about it. I've got some friends that haven't had a job in years. They just get by.
Well, some people, yeah, they don't value. I mean, if you emulate the Native American lifestyle at this time and living out in those hills, there's nothing money can buy for you that that you need. Like, give me a horse and give me a few supplies and I got it. Mm-hmm. I even joke about that in today's day and age because, I see these guys and they buy some giant toy hauler and they have like 4 machines and they have a boat and they have all these things, right? And they have a big fancy house and they have to work all the time to cover the nut and get everything paid for. And I look at it, I'm not built that way. Give me a backpack, some hunting gear, a bow and a rifle, and I'll stay busy throughout the West. And money can't buy what I want. I don't need the money to buy it. I need the laws to enable it. You know what I mean? Like, give me some public land, give me access for some tags, which are relatively inexpensive when compared to all the other sort of things that money can buy in today's day and age. And I can have all the adventure I want. Carry my everything I own on my backpack into some wild country, freeze-dried meals I made myself, live for 2 weeks, hunt some bear, pack it out, can it when I get home, grow a garden. Like, I don't know. These are things that bring me joy and bring me pleasure, bring me adventure, bring me, I say this all the time, I'm rich in time. I'm rich in lifestyle. Mm-hmm. The accumulation of wealth has never been something I've been drawn to either. It's not a motivating factor for me.
Have you heard of the North Pond Hermit?
No.
This guy named Christopher Knight. No, wait, that's not his name. Whatever. No, his name was Christopher Knight.
Uh-huh.
Dude disappeared in the woods for almost 3 decades. 27 years he lived out in the woods. I just stumbled upon this story like a day or two ago.
Yeah.
But it's from like 2017.
Yeah.
Over the course of 27 years, it's estimated that he broke into over 1,000 different cabins and stole things from people. So maybe he wasn't quite living off the land as much as everyone else was, but 27 years off of cabin food, bro.
Oh, man.
Don't tell me the dude don't look like a Quaker.
Wow. Okay. He looks like he did what you just said he did. Anyway, back to the book. It says, he just wasn't all that interested in building wealth. Young Henry Miller settled down in Augusta County in Virginia, becoming a prosperous blacksmith after that. And he and Daniel remained friends. And when Boone served in the Virginia legislature many years later, he took his wife and young son Nathan with him on a visit to the Miller's considerable estate. The two kept in touch from time to time for the rest of their lives. So they remained friends their whole lives. Henry, though, built empire of wealth and so on, and a lot of security. And Boone kicked around in the woods and lived off the land his whole life. Different genes, different drives. Going back to the book, it says, it is hard for modern readers to visualize the amount of labor necessary to settle a farm on the frontier in the 18th century. That's the 1700s. Once the first rough shelter was made on the claimed land, the work had hardly even begun. Pens and huts for livestock had to be built of poles or pickets, split rails, and brush, and then the necessary kitchen garden cleared and fenced to keep out the deer, livestock, and raccoons and ranging hogs. Just to clear a garden patch required days of chopping and sawing, digging out stumps, and grubbing up roots. Luckily, the North Carolina Yadkin soil was not as rocky as the Pennsylvania fields. The soil along the river and tributary creeks of the Yadkin Valley was a rainbow of colors and textures. Near the streams, the ground, once cleared of roots and exposed to the sun, was a black alluvial powder, a mixture of salt and sand and rotted vegetation, perfect for growing watermelons and corn, crops favored by loose, damp soil. In a rainy season, streams sometimes overflowed and left standing pools in the hot sun and scalded the roots of species such as beans. So I think this is interesting because I go hunting. I'm probably in the mountains for 100 days a year at a minimum, sometimes 150. When I'm out there living outside out of my backpack, I bring some food, but every day I have to figure out where I'm going to get water from. Every day I have to go and get that water. when we migrate from place to place as we're trying to find game, we take our tent with us usually. All of our gear, our sleeping bags, our equipment, it packs with us. We have to set up camp, take down camp, set up camp, take down camp. It's astonishing what it takes just to meet your body's needs, shelter, warmth, food, and so forth, day by day, when you're not living in the luxury of a home in civilized spaces. You can't just spin by the gas station, fuel up, motor to this place, grab a lunch, get some ice cream, do whatever, like take a bath, like just staying clean, healthy, fed, like especially when it's 10 degrees outside. You're chopping wood, you're freezing, you're cold, it's a grind. There's just survival is a thing. In modern, I get it because I live it all the time. I go without the comforts of modern civilization for 50 days, 100 days, 100 plus days at a time in a year. So when I come home and I turn on hot water after I've been gone for 3 weeks, it's like, I marvel. When I flip a light switch on and everything's lit, I marvel. When I open the refrigerator and I pull out this smorgasbord of delicious foods, I marvel because I know what the alternative is like. And when he says in the book, it's hard for modern readers to visualize the amount of labor necessary to settle a farm on the frontier in the 18th century. And they talk about just digging to just to plant some food. You truly, this is why I get bothered by people in modern day judging those of the past. They don't get it. They don't know how hard it was for them to carve out that place. They also don't know what kind of threat that they were under from just marauding settlers and evil people, as well as native people, where there's no law enforcement. There was no 911 to call when things went south. You had to
click, click, boom.
You had to be wise and be ready. Carry your own weapon and be able to defend yourself. That was ever present, always a requirement. We just live in a decadent time today, and people don't get it. Going back to the book, it says they basically move. They set up churches and communities. It says the greatest labor was clearing the fields for corn and other crops. The bottomlands along the Yadkin were covered with giant sycamores and tulip poplars, 8, 10, or sometimes 14 feet in diameter. You got to clear these things out. You got to clear forests. You got to get this land so you can plant stuff in it. It was a difficult place, rich land, but hard work. Over the following years, the soil beneath the dead trees would get tilled with hoe and bull-tongue plow pulled by oxen, loosened by heavy grubbing hoes that chopped through roots. Corn could be grown in these rough acres where smaller grains, such as rye and wheat, could not. Corn grew faster in the powerful soil than the weeds around it, reaching it up into the hot southern sun that came through the deadened canopy. Corn, which had been introduced to Europe, was native to this soil and had been grown here by Indians for thousands of years. So corn, folks, was here. That was an American invention, an American deal. But corn back then doesn't look anything like corn today. The corn they're talking about growing, vastly different than what we have today. It's been Frankensteined now.
Well, I mean, if you actually look at corn back then, it looked more like the Frankenstein than our corn does now. You know what I mean? Our corn now has some uniformity to it. Yeah. Those other things look a little incestuous, a little inbred. They look funky.
It was different. It says corn was essential, universal crop for the settlers on the Yadkin. It could be eaten as roasting ears in the milk when first ripe, or it could be grated on a grater into bread when it was a little more mature. When hardened in the fall, corn could be ground into grits or meal and made into mush, pudding, or bread. Corn could be fed to horses, cattle, hogs. The sweet fodder was stripped from the lower stalks in the late summer and kept as winter feed for the horses. The tops of the stalks were cut just above the ears, and they used them for the corn shucks. Filled ticks were used for mattresses. Corn cobs were used for starting fires in the morning, for tobacco pipes, and for a purpose later served by toilet paper.
Corn cob pipe.
And without a grist mill nearby, corn had to be crushed by a heavy wooden pestle on a hollowed stump called a hominy block, as the Indians did it. So we're going to read a little bit more about that. But what do you think so far? Interesting, huh?
Yeah, sorry, you got me.
Life is hard back then. So we're still setting the stage. They did move west. We're getting a little further into it. Daniel did spend at 16 a year in the mountains, earned $1,300 in furs, and then spent it all at once.
Bro, that's a move. Check that out.
Oh yeah. I've seen those in Japan too. Where
Really?
they do that with rice, and
That's a big one.
yeah.
That one's got some levers and some pulleys on it.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll wrap this one up. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Hope you're enjoying the show. Like and subscribe to the channel. If you do, leave us a comment. We appreciate that. We thank you. See you next time. All right, folks. I hope you're enjoying the Dueling Pistols podcast. If you like it, do us a favor and share it with a friend. Help us get this thing to grow a little bit bigger. Tell your dad, your mom, your brother, your sister, your buddy, your uncle.
Go to
Your
contacts,
grandpa.
hit select all, send.
Just sell it. Just share it with a friend of yours, somebody, and help us spread the word about the show. Thanks for supporting us. We'll catch you on the next episode.